This week, I'm putting myself in the hot seat and answering some property management questions because, well, I think it's only fair that people who are looking for property managers hear answers to these types of questions on the Furlo Capital Real Estate Podcast, where we dive into the intricacies of passive real estate investing, which sometimes means hiring a property manager to do it all for you, so that we can equip people to invest wisely in both property and people so that together we can build wealth while improving housing. I'm James, and this is my wife, Jessie.
I can't wait to interview you.
Yeah.
I love asking questions. This is great.
I know. You're
just like a pop quiz.
It's one of the reasons why I got you as my co-host. Yeah, so what I want you to do is, I'm going to say pretend like you're a property owner, but you don't have to pretend. You actually are.
I actually am, and
but
you
put yourself in
actually
that position like, hey,
things,
I'm looking to hire somebody.
Yeah.
And so what I have done is I have created this guide that you can go to our website, furlo.com, and you can download, that has questions you can ask someone when you're thinking about hiring a property manager. Yeah. And I kind of broke it up into two parts. The first part is like, these are the core questions, and there happens to be 20 of them. I actually wasn't aiming for 20. That happened to be it, and it came out to a nice round number, and I was like, all right, it is what it is. I borderline was like, do I need to take one away or add one just to make the point? But I didn't.
20's good.
And then after that, I have part two, which is more like just a vault of, it's over 130 other questions that can dive down into specific areas.
Sure.
But for right now, I'm going to have you focus on those core questions only and ask me. Yeah, I've seen the questions ahead of time.
You've studied.
so I think I'll do all right on the answers for them. But that's what I have you do. Have you ask it as if you are interviewing me, and we're kind of going to roll through them. And just so you can hear the answers that I would give to some of these. Which I also think, feel free to clarify, follow up, do your thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
play nice.
I mean, if someone were to interview you, then this is probably what you would say. So
yeah,
kind of a freebie interview with you.
That's the hope.
So,
yeah.
All right. So this first section, 4 questions.
Ooh, yeah.
Is about ownership, mindset, and authority.
Okay.
So do you, or your principals, which is you, do you own rental property of your own? And are you managing any of your own units? Yes, I do. I own a bunch. I own apartments and some commercial types of things. I own some storage units or facilities, I guess. And we manage all of them. The only one we don't manage is one that is way out of town. And so I have someone else managing Which makes
that.
sense.
Otherwise,
that would be really hard.
Manage it as well. Sure. But yes, and I am the only principal. So,
have you ever had... This is a separate question.
Yeah, no.
Have you ever had somebody else manage your properties?
Oh, yes.
Like, other than being far away? Like the ones...
Yes. At one point I did, right? Because as my portfolio started to scale, I had all sorts of, I was like, okay, like, how am I going to do this? And that was the original route that I went down was, I'll have other people manage it for me. Because I knew that would free me up from the day-to-day activities, let me go off and continue to build. And so I tried that. Unfortunately, the manager wasn't a good fit for what I wanted to do. And so, eventually it just made sense for me to grow my own team. Yeah. So I could still free up my day-to-day time, but essentially brought it all in-house. And then once I had that in place, it was like, oh, I should be doing this for other people as well. Sure. Because I have all the systems, tools, resources in place. And so it just kind of made sense to keep going.
To scale that way. Cool. As we work together, how do you think about decision-making authority between us?
Yeah, so in essence, I'm your day-to-day guy, right? So you are what I would call like the asset manager. You're thinking the big picture, the big strategy in terms of your investments. And my role is to really make sure like you don't have to worry about the day-to-day phone calls, worrying about tenants, the maintenance things. And when it comes to bigger things, like I'm going to come talk to you like, hey, let's talk about the condition overall, like what big improvements need to make sense. I even love having the conversations of when does it make sense to refinance or to sell, to trade up these kind of things, to maybe 1031, whatever it is. But that's kind of your role is like you're moving up that stack to free yourself to think more macro level in terms of your investing. So I'm the day-to-day guy. So
what if I wanted to know about the day-to-day operations?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Like what kind of things would you be interested in knowing?
I don't know, like probably if an issue came up or...
Yeah, okay. So we have in our portal, there's a couple different things. You got the finances, so you can just see the income and expenses. Sure. But then we also track tickets. So when a tenant requests a maintenance thing, it shows up there and you can kind of see the status and what we ended up doing.
And I always have access to that.
Yeah, it's the 24/7, always on demand.
Not that I would check it necessarily, but...
And I'll have that where, and some owners set it up so they get alerts whenever those happen. Some don't. And so they'll actually say, hey, I saw this from the tenant. What's the plan? What are you thinking? And my observation has been after a couple rounds of that, they stop asking.
Right. I can see
It's totally cool.
Once I figure out how you deal with things and how you move forward with it, I can trust that. Yeah, okay, that's what you're going to do typically. So
my other thing that I've observed is that if we have owners who had I would say a problematic or a not perfect property management experience in the past, those tenants will actually reach out to the owners about whatever the issue is going on. Even though like we'll have already introduced themselves, they're paying us rent.
Interesting.
If they have an issue, they'll go to the owner.
Yeah.
And then usually I just tell the owner, just forward it to us. And so we had that recently happen, and now we're actually over there today.
So it seems like the communication between me and you is pretty open, and you're accessible, and
and I'm on your team, right? That's the way to think about it, and that's usually how I will tell owners too. Like, hey, man, like, if you know,
I care about this property because it's yours, and I'm gonna.
Yeah, and I have that ownership mindset because that's how I think about things. Where a lot of the decisions I'm going to make are going to be very pragmatic. That's how I describe it. There's that balance, right? Yes, we could absolutely fix this place up perfectly. Does that make sense to do it? Probably not. Yeah. Could we try to maximize the amount of rent? We could, but we got to balance that with vacancy rates and things like that. And so, I manage it the way I would want it to be managed for my own stuff. And since I set the team priorities across everything, that's how it is.
So this next question is perfect then. Can you give me a few examples of decisions you typically handle independently versus ones you would escalate to the owner?
Yeah, so if you think about like there's the tenant side and then there's the maintenance side. For tenant stuff, right, if they're a little bit behind on the rent, I'm not going to bother the owner about it. We're just going to go through our process. If they get way behind, it's more of a check-in. Hey, FYI, they're not paying. Here's the next steps that we're doing. And then on the maintenance side, if it's here's a really good example of one where we had tenants call about an electrical issue. Like, hey, we're just trying to flip on these lights. They're not working. And so we went out there, checked it out, couldn't figure it out right away. And I didn't tell the owners because it seemed like a small thing. Once we were like, okay, this is beyond my maintenance tech skill set. I then had an electrician come out just to be like, hey, can you come take a look? At that point in time, I gave an FYI to the owners. Hey, this is going on. Just so you know, I don't know the extent of the issue. The electrician came back, said, okay, what's happening is XYZ. So we need to rerun these wires here. And so at that point in time, I was like, all right, what's your bid? What's your quote? It was over the threshold that I had for the owners. And so then I reached out to the owner. I was like, hey, do you want us to do this? Like, you know, I don't have a choice in this case.
You have to do this.
But like, I waited to get permission from them. They said yes. Then we moved forward and they ended up rerunning it and it was all fixed.
Awesome.
And in that particular case, the owners had enough monthly cash flow where we were just able to take it from that monthly cash flow. They didn't have to put money in to get it done. So,
and that threshold of spending is kind of predetermined.
Yeah. I usually, when in doubt, I say, make it lower, like $500 or something like
just
that.
So they're in the know. And
which that means most maintenance stuff we don't have to ask about. But if it does get to I would put it into the repair category. That's when we get to call. And then usually I'm like, eventually they might decide to raise it to, $750, $1,000, whatever, depending on their comfort level.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So have you ever had a situation where you and the owner initially saw things differently and how did you work through it?
Yeah. On occasion, just one simple example. We had one where it was a new property that we had taken over. It was really interesting. He had a tenant in there that was paying a lot, more than what the market could bear.
Wow.
That tenant moved out because she was going somewhere else. I went ahead, did all the market research and said, hey, here's where I think rent should be. That tenant was renting it for $2,800 a month. My math was that the actual market rent was $2,300 a month, which is $500 bucks.
That's significant.
That's big. And so I was like, honestly, this is what I would recommend you come in at. And he was like, well, I was getting 28. I'm like, I know you were, but you're not. And so he was like, okay, well, let's do 2,600. And at the time I was like, and this is in the fall. Where this is happening. I was like, this might sit here a while. I'm like, but we can we'll do it for a week or so and kind of see what happens. And we got 0 phone calls. And so then, he was like, okay, lower it to, what should we lower it to? I was like, 23. And he was like, well, I'll lower it to 25. And then another week later, we lowered it to 24. And I think we actually had one bite at 24. And then another week later, we lowered it to 23. And that was when we got phone calls.
Yeah.
But because we now bumped into that Thanksgiving, Christmas time, I was like, I wish we had done this a month ago, because we would have had it filled. And so that was just one of those. In that situation, I was willing to let it ride. It seemed relatively low risk to do his.
Yeah, to try it.
To try out his thing. And so that's what we did. And usually for like maintenance-y type of things, there's other things that we'll do where, if they have to put money in, sometimes owners are like, dude, I can't afford this. Like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so we have to have hard conversations there. But like, well, how's this thing going to get funded?
Sure.
Sometimes I'll say, well, I'll tell you what, like, I will fund the repair, and then you can just pay me back with the cash flow over time. I have done that in special situations. Sure. Sometimes I charge interest for it, kind of depending on what it is. Because sometimes, man, like, we just have to do the repair. Yeah. Or I'll often give it to them. Be like, hey, if you want to do the repair, that's cool. Like, that's one way to save money as long as you do a good job.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're willing to work with owners. It's not just like a cut dry, here's how I run things, do it or don't.
Yeah.
You're willing to work back and forth and try different things.
Yeah. But honestly, 80% of what we do, we don't have to ask. It's just the normal operation stuff.
Yeah. All right. The next section is economic performance and incentives.
Okay.
So at the portfolio level, how do you track performance metrics like vacancy and collections?
It's all built into our software where we can see.
Yeah, you mentioned this portal.
Yeah, so our software, you can kind of track. You can just see what people still owe money, when payments have come in. And so they've got some easy dashboard things that show our percentages that we have. I also look at the number of open work orders tickets that we have. It's not necessarily a hard metric, but my goal is always to get that to zero.
Right.
Never does, but that's what we're trying to get to. Those are just some of the really easy top line metrics. One that I want to start implementing is the new software that we're using for communications. Technically tracks like how fast we respond to stuff. And so we're just getting started on that one. So I don't have.
Interesting.
It's still very variable because there's not a lot of data. But over time, in 6 months to a year from now, it'll be a lot more stable, and we'll be able to ask questions like, okay, guys, what do we need to do to lower those times to some reasonable threshold?
Sure.
If, or maybe not. Maybe we'll be awesome. Seems like a lot to lower it. But
what metrics do you personally pay attention to each month?
Yeah, I care a whole lot about when we hit that 5th of the month, how many people still owe money.
So late payments.
Yeah, that's probably my big one.
On time payments, I guess. You're just
no,
tracking payments.
I care about late payments. That's the one I'm watching.
Yeah.
And we have that. That's my first slot on my dashboard. So I see it every time I open it up. That's the big one that I care about because, that's all. I got to get on.
If you've got money coming in, you can take care of most other issues.
And we're sending out reminders and all the fun jazz.
Cool. Can you walk me through your standard fee structure?
Yeah. So we charge a percentage of whatever the collected rent is. And it kind of depends on the size and location and even the type of one that it is. So I've charged anywhere as high as 12%. And that might be for a house that has rented out by the room that's, a ways away.
Sure.
And all the way down to, say, like 6% for it's kind of a hands-off commercial type of situation where it's got some long-term tenants that are locked in. And
you do a lot less.
Pretty straightforward on that one. Okay. And so that's kind of the gamut for it. And then in addition to that, there are some one-time fees. Like there's a getting started fee for when we when we put them into the system. Yeah. And then when we're signing new leases, we'll charge for that. Okay. And which there's a difference between a residential versus a commercial because a commercial takes a lot more effort, but it also tends to select in for 5 years or more. And so so we'll charge differently for that. And then there's just. I don't know if this is a fee per se, but I have an in-house maintenance person. And so when he goes and works, like we just have an hourly rate that we'll charge for that. But yeah, that's pretty, which I think is pretty standard. Yeah. That
was my next question was like, compared to other property managers, are you in the ballpark of what they charge?
Totally.
Are you
yeah.
high end? Are you low end? You're kind of in the mix
I'm
of everything.
probably medium high is my guess. I'm probably not average. I'm probably slightly above average is my guess.
Do most small property management companies have everything in-house? Or do they like hire out contractors to fix stuff and do other, like, I don't know.
No, I think a lot, I don't know. When you say small, there's kind of like something magical happens around the 40 unit mark. Because then you have enough revenue coming in that you can hire someone to help you out. And there's usually enough work where you can actually hire a technician almost full time.
Okay.
And so that's usually at that point in time, they're trying to do most of it in-house, but they're still hiring contractors for doing the cleaning and things like that.
Okay.
Big turns, which, we're like, I don't know, we're that small to medium-ish size, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Are there any situational or less common fees that tend to surprise owners if they don't ask up front?
Not for me.
Because you kind of disclose all those different fees up front.
Yeah, and actually the way that I've set it up is when you get the property management agreement, there's a preamble, there's a one-pager summary at the beginning where I'm like, here's all the fees. Here's how they all
kind of nice.
Kind of work out. And it was for me. I was like, okay,
right.
what did my lawyer draft here?
Yeah,
what am I committing to?
Charging here?
And so I put it all on one easy page to real quickly see what they all are. And then the future pages, say it all in the legal way.
Okay.
And so there aren't any surprises that I have just because I didn't want any surprises. Yeah. And obviously that's a lot of I'm a very much golden rule type of thing where I'm like, how would I want myself to manage my properties? So that's how I set it up. Cool. So try to have a straightforward fee structure. Try not to have any surprises because I don't want that for my own stuff.
Yeah. So how does the fee structure work during a vacancy period if you're charging a percentage of collected rents?
Yeah, so I have a minimum fee that I'll charge. It's usually somewhere in the $75 to $100 a month, which honestly only matters for single family homes has been my observation.
Because typically you've got other units that are covering. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a per property.
Okay.
Flat fee, which I don't know, maybe that's not smart on my part, but
I mean, the goal is to have it rented, to not have it vacant for a long time. So
yes, I make significantly less. But so for a single family home, that's one where I'll make like $75 a month, and we're actively trying to do stuff and spend time and energy on it. So I don't make any money during that time. I do charge a fee for leasing it, which I do charge, and that's where I want to make my money. And I honestly if I take on a property that has some initial vacancy, I don't actually charge anything for those months because you don't have any money,
right?
So I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And so I'll usually wait to do it. And I've even had it where it's like, again, I had this one owner where he had a tenant who, just as we took over, she moved out, and so it was like, okay, we had to do cleaning and all the stuff, and he was in a situation where she sent him the rent, which was fine, and what I ended up doing was I fronted the money for the cleaning so that they could get in there, and then they get paid, and then I just had a bill that was kind of just outstanding there, and then once he got his tenant, I was like, all right,
this is due. And
even then I made the decision to not pay it all right away because then he would have had zero cash flow. Yeah. And I was like, that doesn't feel good either. I know he's been hurting. Yeah. And so I'm like, that's okay. I can wait a couple months.
You're flexible when there's vacancies and you're onboarding. All right. That makes sense. You can't do that all the time. It seems like.
Yes.
Because if you did that for everybody all the time, you'd be floating everybody.
Well, right. And once a unit has been filled and then a tenant moves out, I have a combination of I have a reserve and I can take that last month's cash flow and be like, I'm just going to I'm not going to pay it out. I'm going to hold on to it because we're going to pay for all the other stuff. And so it's not as bad. Yeah.
And do you tend to find that vacancy rates are pretty low with the properties that you manage, and so
I was doing the math, and mine's about 7%, which honestly is average for Oregon right now. Sure. So I'm normal.
You're in the in the range.
Yeah. The hard part recently has just been that rents have been flat to declining. And as a landlord, that just hurts.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, I'm not getting as much last
expenses
time.
are
So
going
even
up
though
still,
I'll list it for the same amount as what I had last time, it just sits a lot longer.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lower the rent because I like the income.
Sure.
So that's just been hard. But, you know.
All right. Third section out of six.
We're getting there.
Tenant quality and leasing trade-offs. How would you describe your tenant screening philosophy?
Oh, man. I want responsible tenants, which I define 3 ways. They pay their rent in full and on time. They take care of the property as if it was their own. And then they communicate respectfully with myself and other tenants. And so we are looking for people who are responsible. And we've got different screening criteria that help to measure those things. So like we're checking their income, we're checking their credit, we're checking their background, we're talking to a previous landlord, where we're spending time talking to them and getting a feel for them. And so, and then we just have a very it's a yes/no type of check sheet on where did they do this, did they this, and so that's what we're looking for.
And is that primarily you or a different team member going through those parameters? Like how, I guess, how does your team divvy out that process?
Yeah, great question. So so there's different ways to structure management companies. Some companies, and I just think this is especially the larger ones, what they do is they have an person who's in charge of a portfolio of properties, and they do the screening, the maintenance,
properties.
I mean, well, they don't necessarily swing the hammer, but like they do all the communication. They're the point person for that property. And then you have the other structure, which is more of a team structure where you might have SMEs, subject matter experts. So you have an person who's good at tenant marketing and screening. You have an person who does maintenance coordination. You have an person who answers the phones and does a lot of the communication back and forth. I am trending towards the team model. And that may change where I actually have clusters in the future. But I like that team model because you get multiple eyes on things. So I am not the one anymore who is calling and screening tenants. I'm checking on the work and approving it. But but they follow the process that I've created and the whole checklist system that I have. And we can check in every morning and go, where are we at with so-and-so?
That's awesome. So when you're leasing a unit, how do you balance speed versus tenant quality? Because I imagine those processes take time.
Yeah, and that is a balance because vacancies are that's the death nail of investing. You lose so much money during a vacancy that it's like, man, what do we got to do to fill this thing? But
you don't want to just put anybody
is
in
not
there.
just physical vacancy. There's economic vacancy as well. So you don't want a tenant who's, they're in the unit, but they're not paying the rent. Or they're breaking things. And,
causing
not
problems.
taking care of it. And I tend towards, I want the quality tenant because if you get a good one in there, it could be great for at least the next year, potentially the next 5 to 10 years. And so it's really setting that rent is the trick. Your screening criteria should always stay the same. Don't change that. And if you're not finding anybody, the answer isn't, well, let me just lower the income requirement. The answer is let me lower how much income they need to have by lowering the rent. And so that's the trick. And that's what I will do. And I'm usually I'll be relatively quick to change it. I'm not going to wait. At most, I wait a week before. If I'm man, I'm not getting it. It's all about the number of leads. If I've got people who are asking questions, all right, the price is where it needs to be. I'm just looking for the right person. But they got to hit my screening criteria. And that's for multiple reasons. Number one, they're there for a reason because this is how I know someone is a responsible tenant. But then number two, if I change it up just to fill it, that potentially opened myself up to a discrimination issue because I'm not treating everybody the same. And so we just treat everyone the same.
Use the same criteria.
And it takes as long as it does. And if we're not getting the kind of leads that we want, we just change the rent.
Let's say the rent.
Because smart people like deals, right? So they see it.
Let's say the rent was set appropriately. About how long is that process from this unit became vacant to it's filled?
It depends.
On average.
On average. It's gone up over time. It's probably somewhere between, it's probably 2-ish weeks. Is my guess. It's kind of weird. So we've got it set up where it's I prime tenants when they first move in to say, hey, you might give me your 30 days notice and this is your move out date, but you might physically be out of there sooner. Let me know when you are actually out of there sooner. And that's when we'll aim to get it rented.
Oh, okay.
And so we've had it where people pay for like the entire month, but let's say they're out on the 20th. And I know that we get cleaners who are in there on the 21st and the 22nd. We've been setting up tours ahead of time. And then a lot of times what will happen is we've got someone who's like, okay, they're ready to move in on the 1st. Oh. And technically it's a 0 vacancy because, and what I'll tell them is, hey, if I get someone to move in ahead of time, I'll refund you whatever that was.
Sure.
And, and sometimes I do refund them 2-3 days and we're just like, we just include that as part of the returning the deposit piece, and it works out really well. Yeah. And so, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes tenants are like, no, like they either don't get the 30 days or they're just like, no, I don't want to be disturbed, which I'm like, man, I really want to give a tour. And I also set them up where I'm like, the way our process works is I'm only giving 1 or 2 tours because people are already applying. We're already having the conversation and then I'm taking them inside. So by the time we get to there, like they're pretty committed. Yeah. We're not doing open houses and things like that. And so most tenants are like, oh, okay, I get it. If you're only doing 1 or 2, cool. Yeah. So that's what I try to do to minimize it.
That's awesome.
Doesn't always work, but and time of year matters. Like in the winter time, especially between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm like, dude, it might sit vacant the entire month. It's just how it is.
People are not motivated to look for a place right then. So are there any situations where an applicant technically qualifies based on your criteria, but you still decide not to move forward? And what drives that call?
As long as the fair housing people aren't listening, sometimes, it's, we've had situations where I guess the way that I've phrased it is we'll have people, we do an ad, they'll inquire, we'll go, awesome. Step 1 is to apply. Let me know if you have any questions. They'll usually ask questions. And then after they apply, our very next step is to set up a phone call with them and just ask questions. And really what we're doing is we're just clarifying what was inside of their application. Hey, just want to make sure it is just you two. Do you have any pets? You said you don't smoke. Does that include cigarettes, marijuana, and vaping? Tell me about what would your, is there anything I need to be concerned about on a background check? Tell me what you think your credit score is, stuff like that. We're also doing research on like, what attracted you to this property? Where did you see this property? That kind of stuff. So we just can get a handle on it. And sometimes in that conversation, we'll walk out of it. We always walk through the process. It's just a question of how, man, I got something in my throat. It's just a question of how, I don't want to use the word strict, but how in depth we're going to chase something down. If they, I don't know, sometimes they might say something where, just to use an example, maybe they say they don't smoke, but there's something about it. I don't know. They got a raspy voice. I don't know. Yeah. Where I'm going to spend a lot more time going through their Facebook page and looking at all the pictures and looking for evidence.
Interesting. That
kind of stuff. And sometimes, honestly, we have a great conversation and I go, oh yeah, you're fine. I go to the Facebook page, I surf it and go, yep. It meets how that conversation went. And so then we move
on. So you definitely rely much more on your process than on your spidey sense, if that is a way to call it that, because that's trackable and legal and all those different things. However, if something does seem like a red flag, you'll look into it.
Yeah, our screening criteria is set up in such a way where we can always find something if we need to. Sure. Because we look at all the things that matter. Yeah. Now, I remember back in the day, you and I had a situation where there was, how did it work? It was a boyfriend, girlfriend, another set of friends, happened to be a boy and girl, and then that girlfriend's mother was moving in. And they had 2 ESA animals as well. Yeah. And the mother, something like disability-wise about her or something like that as well. And I was like, holy cow, we've got the disability thing. And this was a 3-bedroom place. So technically you can have up to 7 people. And, but then it was only 1 bathroom. And technically, if you only have 1 bathroom, you don't necessarily have to rent to multi-gender. if they're not married or a family. Like there was all sorts of weird stuff. But then there was the age thing, and like it was just a discrimination.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so that was one where they were like, oh, I remember we had our 3 times criteria for that, and they like barely were over the line.
Yeah.
With 5 people. And I just remember then like, oh my gosh, like that inherently didn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
To which I was like, something's wrong with my screening criteria. Like I need to refigure out the income thing. 3X is really simple. It's easy math, but maybe that's just too simple for situations like this. And I remember you and I were like,
yeah,
dude, I hope something comes up.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we called the previous landlord and they were like, I couldn't believe it. They were like, these guys are horrible. Do not rent to them. Their pets were bad. Like they destroyed everything where it's causing us thousands of dollars to go through and fix up all their damage.
Yeah.
Like so bad.
You're like, okay.
I was like, oh, perfect. That's what I was looking for. And so I found if my spidey sense is going off, there's something there. I just need to keep asking.
Yeah.
And eventually I figure it out. Now we've had situations where it's kind of the opposite, right? Where it's like, man, on paper, this doesn't seem like it should work. Like maybe their credit score is just trashed or something like that.
Yeah.
But they come at it from a good reason. Where it's like, oh, you know, I had a bad relationship. My spouse did some stuff, or I had some medical issues, and yeah, the bills piled up. I didn't get a hold of it, but I'm on my, on the way up.
Yeah.
Well, I'll usually be like, well, you know what? I'm willing to take a chance. Yeah. And I've had it too, where I've had other situations where I knowingly took a chance on someone, and honestly, most of the time it doesn't work out. But I'm also like, yeah, you know what? Honestly, if I can provide them a house for 9 months, and and I give them a shot, I can sleep well at night knowing that I did that. Yeah. And I've just also learned, like, in those situations, if they get behind on your rent, you don't go, take a week to figure it out.
You
like, no,
work quickly
you pull that record quick because they're not going to pull out of it.
Which, hopefully, you have that conversation with them ahead of time, and if you're like, this is close and it's going to be tight, so here's our process. If you ever can't make a payment or those sorts of things, they know that. They know it up front.
Yep.
Okay, that's actually the next section here.
Yeah.
Number 4 is rent enforcement and issue resolution.
Oh, perfect.
So hopefully,
let's talk about it.
Talking about it ahead of time. How do you typically see rent payments perform across your portfolio?
It kind of depends. Storage is not as good as everything else.
That kind of makes sense. It's like out of sight, out of mind.
Part of it is I inherited a pretty messy situation where the previous property manager essentially didn't collect rent.
Right.
And so now we're coming in and be like, hey guys,
actually,
guess what?
You
gotta
do
pay
have
rent.
to pay rent.
Dude, we got this one tenant. Again, I inherited him. And he got some financial assistance, which paid for his back rent. So he's good through December. And I was like, okay, but let's talk about January. Like, what's your plan? And he was like, I don't have one. I know. It's like,
crickets.
Okay.
Good.
I feel like January is coming kind of fast. And so,
What's the plan to create a plan?
And so we so in that situation, and I get it. He had lived there for 18 months without having to pay rent. 18 months.
I mean,
so
why
as far
would
as
you
he's
at that
concerned,
point?
he's like, I don't have to pay rent. This is awesome. And so now I'm coming in, and even when I took over, he was like, hey, I'm working with CSE to get back payments. So I was like, all right. So I waited a whole month for it to happen because I was like, he's like, I have the paperwork. It's all, it's all approved. We're just working through it. And so I was patient. Now it's done. And now I'm like, oh man, do I want to be this guy? He's going to kick him out like right afterwards. So I'm like, but the answer is yes. And it's 2 adult people living in the brothers living in this unit. Like they don't have jobs, and it's not a disability handicap type of situation. So I'm like, dude, like, I hate to be this way, but I'm going to have pretty low patience on this. Yeah. And so, they're getting a move out letter on the 5th of next month, and it's just going to be hard. But I have 5 other tenants, but anyways, so for residentials, it's fine. For people who I screen and bring in, we do a great job of setting expectations ahead of time. I got this whole video series that I actually require everyone to watch that talks them like, it says, here's expectations I have of you. Here's expectations you can have of me. Those are separate videos. And then I actually walk them through the rental agreement. Like, here's what this thing is that you're signing. Because we do everything digitally. And, with DocuSign, you're just like, click, 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 click.
Right.
And so I slow it down on purpose. And be like, here's what you're agreeing to. which very much mirrors that other video. And then the final video I give is actually a financial foundation. Like I talk about crazy concepts like spending less than you earn and saving for emergencies. And then also like, here's what saving and investing looks like. And here's what an asset is. Here's what a liability is, those kind of things. And I've had multiple tenants over the years be like, oh my gosh, like we were getting ready to go out and buy a brand new car and go in the debt. And we didn't because of what you shared with us in there. And I had other people who were like, yeah, our credit score was actually better when we moved out because we did the things that you recommended. And so, because I'm like, dude, I have an incentive here. I want you to have a financially
if you're
solid
financially stable,
because then you can pay me rent
and be
so,
responsible.
So I'm like, yeah, I want you to be here. So, so people who we bring in, it's very rare that we have a problem. Yeah. And I mean, it happens, and I get it. It's usually when I'm inheriting another property that someone else was managing, or it was self-managed, not really self-managed very well. Then there's a cleanup period. So that hurts my my rent payment numbers.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I suppose if I was really smart, I'd break them out.
Once you've onboarded new people, typically there's
and that's something that I can probably do a better job with owners and be like, hey, look, I'm not going to come in and magically fix this thing. There's been habits and behaviors that have been established here, and I've done this enough now where I just know tenants aren't going to be like, oh, new owners, time to, or new managers, time to buck up. Like, no, they try the same playbook with me. And then I kind of get to be the bad guy, and but that's okay.
So give us, I know you've hinted at different pieces of it, but when the rent isn't paid on time, what does that usual process look like as far as like timing and action?
Yeah.
So let's say the 5th comes around, there's non-payment.
They're going to get they get an email / text message, sometimes phone call from us just saying, hey, rent's late. And then we're waiting. We usually wait a few more days just to kind of see what they're going to do. And then depending on their reaction, because sometimes we get a tenant who's like, totally get it. I'm working on it, whatever. Sweet. No big deal. And that's kind of my thing. Like if they communicate, I'll be flexible. I really will be. If they don't communicate, no. That's when paperwork comes out and we're moving forward and just letting the system work. Oregon is very tenant friendly. And so I'm kind of like, as long as they're willing to play ball, I'll play ball. But if they're not, then we'll do it.
So what's the timeline of when you file paperwork?
Again, it kind of depends. It's usually around the 10th, if I'm honest.
Okay.
We're not doing it on the 6th. That's very rare that I'm doing it. Unless that was like, we had an issue in the previous month.
And
then
an ongoing issue.
Yeah. So like this one example I gave of the guy who, I was like, hey, what's your plan? Yeah. And he was like, I don't have one. Like, yeah, he's going to get one on the 6th. Right. And and then it's going to be the 10 days and, whatever. We're going to do that. Okay. So it's situational dependent.
So what are some of the factors? You've mentioned some of them, but what are some of the like specific factors for when you decide to continue working with a tenant versus just moving on with formal enforcement?
Yeah, communication is going to be the thing.
That's like the biggest thing, it seems like.
I've had tenants who have lied to me, who are like, oh, we're working on it, and I'm usually pretty forgiving. Sure. And then eventually like, no, you're not. Yeah. and on those situations, I'm like, I should have pulled the trigger sooner. Sure. But I don't know. I also, like, if I were the tenant, how would I want to be treated? And I don't want to just necessarily be that landlord who's just like, this is the letter of the law.
Don't care.
And so I've had multiple ones where we've terminated and I've gotten the keys from them and they've been like, hey, you were pretty fair the whole time. Like, I get it. Which minimizes damage. Sure. Has been my experience. Like, and I'm willing to forego a few weeks of rent, maybe even a month of rent for them not to damage the unit out of frustration with me. Sure. It's balance.
All right. Got it. Maintenance. Let's talk about some maintenance decision making. How do you typically handle repair approvals with owners? You talked about a threshold. At some point.
That's the big thing.
Okay.
If it's under some amount, like, we're just gonna do it. And I will talk with the tenant to kind of get an idea for like, okay, is this emergency status? Do we need to get in there today, tomorrow, or is this like, we can get it scheduled in the next month or two. Wait till nicer weather, something like that. And then if it's going to be above a certain amount, we'll then either, if we're going to do it in house, we'll make an estimate. I'll talk to the owner. If we're hiring someone else out, again, I'll have them come out, make an estimate. And depending on what it is, like, I might even reach out to the owner ahead of time, and be like, hey, like we do with the electricity thing. I was like, I don't know the full cost yet. Just FYI, this is coming down the pipe. Sure. And so then when I gave him the estimate, it was within minutes. He had already approved it and we were fine and ready to move on. And so I could talk to them. So that's kind of like, it's that threshold.
Yeah.
Really.
And that varied based on what the owner's preference was.
Yes.
Was that right?
I usually, like, when we're having our first conversation, I'll like, hey, there's some blanks to fill in here.
With?
I don't really care what the number is.
Sure.
Like, what makes you like, what's your reserve amount? That's a big one. How much money are we going to keep just in the account, just in case? And usually, they'll be like, okay, well, that's what I recommend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it depends. It's like for a single family home, I'm usually like half a month's rent, just in cases.
Yeah.
But then as the property scales up, you don't need to hold half a month for every single unit.
Sure.
I'm usually, because that, like, it's never going to be that much. I honestly, like, the most I think I'll ever hold for someone will be like $1,500 for it. I actually think I have the biggest ones for my own properties because I was like, I don't want to ever have to put money back in.
Yeah.
And so, but it's usually in that like $1,500 range, even for big places. I'm like, dude, the chances, because there's two things, right? You want to have that reserve, but then there's also cash flow that comes out from the month. And so we could just pull from there. Sure. So if it's a multifamily, I'm like, yeah, no, I'll just give you a smaller distribution for the month. Yeah. Instead of you getting $6,000, you're only going to get $4,000 because I pulled $2,000 and maybe even that other, the times when we have to spend just on maintenance stuff, like $3,500 or whatever, it's pretty rare.
Okay.
And then if it is bigger ones, I'm just calling them like, hey, unfortunately, this is a $10,000 thingy that happened.
Yeah.
So your reserve wasn't going to cover it anyways.
Sure.
And then so there's the reserve, and then the other one is, hey, what threshold do you want me to give you a phone call for? And that's usually, again, I'll say like, man, when in doubt, start at 500, and then when you're ready, we can move it up to 1,000, and that is going to take care of most things. And so those are the two big ones. And I don't care what the numbers are.
If you do dip into that reserve, the goal is like to build it back up over time. And then,
not over time. Like, I guess as fast as possible.
Yeah, as you collect rent, you build that back up as fast as possible. Back to
the reserve is really designed for handling some of those bigger expenses, just so they're not having to necessarily write a check to get it to me. But honestly, the way that we run it, because Oregon's got really weird rules, if you have, as a property manager, I have to have what's called a client trust account to manage owner and tenant funds. It can't just be a normal bank account. It's like a special thing. And also part of those special rules is you can't have a debit card linked to that account for some reason. And so, like, you can write checks and you can have an ATM card, I guess. And so, it's kind of interesting. And my software lets me do like an ACH transfer, which honestly is what I do most of the time.
Sure. But
because of all that, and I didn't just necessarily want to give my team access to like, here's how you send payments.
Right.
We actually have a totally separate expense system that we'll use for regular expenses, because what it let me do is it lets me give every single employee a card, and I can set spending limits. And then what they have to do for every single expense is they have to upload a receipt. They have to give a memo. What was this for? Then they have to say what was the property for, and then either they or my bookkeeper will then choose, here's the accounting category that it goes with. And so it just keeps everything super organized. And then even for certain payments, so if they're using the card, cool. And then we can also send out payments that way. So all that to say, it allows us to pay for expenses ahead of time. Just be like, hey, this is an emergency. Yeah, we're just going to get it done. I know it has to get done. We're just talking to the owner to figure it out. Like, that's how I can float it, because I got 30 days before I have to pay off that. It's essentially a debit card. It's pretty cool. It's like an interest-free account.
That is kind of cool.
For me, the trick was it let me put in spending controls for all my teammates and just make sure that everything's documented before it gets approved and or finalized or whatever. And so super convenient.
Yeah. That is kind of nice.
But yeah, I think I went off track on the question, but that's okay.
Yeah, got in the weeds there a little bit, but that's useful to know. As an owner, I know that you're not just going to spend a bunch of my money and then cause a problem later, or, but yet you have systems in place where you can take care of things and then account for it later and have it be all clean. So compare preventative maintenance versus deferring work. What's kind of your general standard on that?
Yes.
Yes.
If I'm honest, my default is to, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's typically what my default is. And I have some owners who that's like, no. I want it nice all the time.
Yeah.
And I'll just be honest, like that's not necessarily how I think about it for myself. Mine's a lot more pragmatic. And so just depends on the owner. Like we'll be a lot more get in there. And there's some things where it's like, man, if it was someone where it was their house and they lived there and it was super nice and now they moved out to another state because of a job and they became accidental landlords and turned it into a rental and their house is nice. I'm like, yeah, all right, we're actually gonna get in there and like, if little things are broken, we're gonna fix it because the owner. And I'll ask the owner ahead of time too. I have this whole, it's a property knowledge worksheet is what I have everybody fill out when I first take over management, and it's a bunch of questions. And I tell them like, look, this is just so we don't do the whole 20 question back and forth thing. And I'm asking you, where's this and this? I do it all at once. And I'm asking everything all the way from the big stuff. What's your goal? What's your communication style? But to the little things like, what's your nickname for this property? I'll call it what you call it. To where's the sewer clean out on this thing? Where are the mailboxes at? Because that's not always obvious. Like it's a whole bunch of those very practical, nitty gritty types of questions so that I'm like, because eventually I'm going to be like, hey, like I didn't know the answer to this. So it's just all in one place, which is really nice. And so anyways, in there, I'll also ask like what's your
level of quality
what
here?
What do you want here?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to suss that out as well.
That makes sense, especially knowing that your personal preference might be very different from somebody else's. So you just ask.
And it
up
depends
front.
on the property, right? You got some where it's like workforce housing or it's, it's Class C. Like, dude, whatever. Like, we get it.
Fine.
Make it clean, rent it out. And then you have others. No, this is top of the line. You treat them differently.
Yeah.
I tend to go more like workforce cash loan properties. So.
Sure.
That's my preference. I like the fixer-uppers. What can I say?
Yeah. All right. Last section here.
Boom.
Expectations for a long-term fit.
Ah, yes.
So beyond rent increases, what are some of the ways you help owners improve the property's overall performance over time?
I remember when I came up with that question, I was like, oh, this is a good one. This is so hard. Because that is number one is like, do the rent increases. The big one's going to be like, so vacancy, which I get is related to that, is trying to minimize that vacancy. That's huge. So like I said, when someone gives me their 30-day notice, we don't just sit on it for 30 days.
Right.
Like that kicks off a whole process, and our goal is to get this thing rented ahead of time. And, and to get everything lined up, and we have the people, processes in place. We're doing a move-out inspection to kind of figure it all out. Like we got one where they're moving out, and there's some sink that needs to be refinished, and we cash that kind of stuff, and we get things lined up ahead of time so that boom, we can get in there and do
quickly.
it. So I think we just have time, which is huge for an owner because again, vacancies kill it.
Yeah.
And we are looking for those kind of things. Other things that we'll do, just some long-term planning, like, because we look at the properties regularly.
Yeah.
And, when we see stuff, like we have like an official annual inspection, and that's where we're actually going through like, what is the condition of the roof, of the siding, of the inside, and just really trying to help the owner think through, hey, what are some of those CapEx expenses that you kind of want to have on your radar and be thinking about ahead of time. Sure. And so we do those kind of things. And
that's awesome.
That's helpful.
They can plan ahead for, not deferring the maintenance, but actually keep staying on top of it so that things don't wear down. And
and there's other things,
property
just
value.
Because I'm an investor, there's things that I look at, and some owners take me up on the, hey, let's talk strategy, or like, what is the long term? Does it make sense to refinance? Sure. Or like, I'm getting ready to refinance. I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. You have a vacant unit. We're going to lower the rent, make sure it's full, and we're going to lock in an annual lease so that your lender goes, awesome.
Yeah.
As opposed to being it vacant, stuff like that. Yeah. And so, because I know that's the kind of thing that you're looking for.
Yep.
And we're just having discussions. Or when they're looking to acquire another property, I'm like, yeah, let me check it out. I'll even help you with the underwriting. I'm good at it.
That is kind of cool because you have that. You're not just a property manager. You have the investment perspective as well. So you can evaluate properties and give advice. And yeah.
And who knows? Maybe they got a situation where, they own this investment. They've got some funds, not quite enough to go buy another rental. But I'm like, hey, I've got a passive deal coming up. Why don't you just put $50,000 into this deal for the next 6 months, year, earn 12% on your money, and then when that's done, then go off and buy your own asset, and I'll manage it for you. And and so there's options like that we can do.
That's awesome.
But I think just being able to devote time and attention and have systems, that's just huge.
Yeah. So in 6 months, what would tell us both that this relationship is working well?
Yeah. I think it's going to be, it's just your property's where you want it to be. Like you got tenants who are in it. Because in 6 months, I'm going to solve whatever the issue is. Or it's going to be like very well on
Yeah, you'll have a
like,
plan.
Depends on what it is. Like if it's a tenant issue, in 6 months, we're going to know like, okay, this thing's being resolved or not. Or oftentimes there is a lot of deferred maintenance and it's like, and it's all done. Because if we just prioritize it, put it on a list and get it done. And I think those are going to be it. There's going to be some communication stuff. You're going to be looking at the reports and go, oh, cool. I had this one. I couldn't believe it. I'm debating on whether or not to put it on my website as a testimonial because we met, I gave them, and then, I started managing it. And then they asked for just a quick update on something. I was like, oh yeah, here's this. Oh, by the way, here's all this other stuff that's going on. And they wrote back like, wow, we've learned more about this property just from you than we have in the past 15 years of updates. And I was like, holy cow. Because they did some of it themselves and then they had managers and stuff like that. And they ended up moving to me because they had issues with like multiple managers in a row, which I felt so bad for them. But stuff like that. We're just like, okay. And so I would say if you get into 6 months and you feel like, hey, my property, like it's under control and I've got transparency about what's happening, but I'm not having to worry about it. Or if there are issues, like you're aware of them and you know what's going on, I think that's where you can kind of comfortably be like, okay, yeah, I feel good about this. I also say, dude, I'm not perfect. Like we've definitely made mistakes and I don't reply back as fast as I want to. And that's something that I'm working with on my team to just to get me out of that loop. So that replies do happen faster. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. And but that's an area where I'm like, I would love to have a response time that is within a couple of hours. And I'm more like a day or two. And it's just because I'm,
there's a lot
doing other stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of I'm not perfect. I get it. And that's the other thing is like, yes, I am an owner and I like to manage it. Like I have that ownership mindset. But I'm not you.
It could be slightly different, but you get the core principle of kind of what we're going for. Like we want our property to be well taken care of and we want to be making a profit and not have to worry about the day-to-day things. So it's like those are the big buckets. Cool. Last question. If either of us feels like this isn't the right fit over time, what does that professional transition look like?
Yeah, so here's an interesting one.
To fire you.
So I purposely decided not to use that word.
Transition apart.
When they sign the property management agreement, we agree to it for a year and then it kind of turns into a month-to-month thing. But I always tell everyone, like, honestly, if you're not happy, like, I'm not gonna,
just talk to me.
I'm not gonna lock you in.
Sure.
And we can find another route for you to go. I'm also like, if you're not, let's talk. Like, I can fix it. If I'm not doing something that you don't want, like I'm for you.
Yeah.
So if I'm not doing something that you like let me know. And I'll change. And we'll adapt the system to what it is that you want. And so, but yeah, if it ever comes to that point where they want, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. What do you need? They have on demand all the reports, so they can download that at any time. And then usually it's like, hey, you need deposits? Yeah, we'll transfer it over to you or to your new manager. We try to make it pretty easy.
Yeah, it seems like you do a lot of upfront work to get aligned on like what's your philosophy of investing and where are you headed with this? What's your expectation? What's your threshold for where you want to spend your money? So there's very few surprises, I guess.
That's what I try to have happen.
I could see if there was some sort of emergency and it blew up and they just had some life issue. I don't know. Yeah. It doesn't seem like there would be a bad, transition.
Correct. Yeah. No, that's definitely I try to set expectations early on with tenants. Sure. I'm trying to do the same thing with owners as well. I'm actually I have this whole video series for tenants. In my head, I'm like, you know what? I should really create one of these for owners as well. Just because, one of the videos that I always send them is, here's how to navigate the portal and to see stuff. And I had one owner who was like, yeah, you can show them all my stuff. And it was a good medium set where he had a couple properties, 6 units total. And so you could kind of it wasn't overwhelming. Right. Like if I showed you mine, you'd be like, there's 120 units here. This is ridiculous. It would just be it's overwhelming.
It's too much. Yeah.
But for his, I was like, this is perfect because it had a little bit of everything in there. So it was a great case study. Yeah. And so this is a video that I'm like, you should watch this because it will show you, here's how to log in. Here's how to see things on the dashboard. Here's how to get to the reports. Here's the reports that I like and care about. It's the owner report, by the way. And I'm like, because that, to me, it's like, it's a one shot. It has like 99% of what you want. The rent roll is probably the other one that I'll look at. And so that's, I have that. And I'm kind of like, that feels like that's one part of a bigger part of a series and kind of going through that stuff. But yeah, I try to set it up. It's interesting too. There's just different investors, right? There's the accidental landlord, and they just have a different set of expectations walking in versus someone who is like, hey, I've grown my portfolio to a point. I can't manage it. I have been managing it myself. There's I have been managing it myself. I have a family and kids and a life, and I don't have time to do this, and I can tell I'm not doing it as well as I want. Yeah. They'll hand it off. And then you have the other where it's like, not only that, but I'm growing the portfolio and I have this other direction I'm headed in, and they're looking to get help to scale. So there's kind of like there's those three different groups. The three of them have different expectations for what they're looking for. They're both good. They're all good. I have my favorites, but
so one last question. This might be
that's it. One last one.
Have you be vulnerable?
Okay.
Have you ever had to dissolve a relationship with an owner? Or has an owner had to transition away from your property management for some reason?
No, not yet. Okay. I think I'm still new enough that
you've managed quite a few things.
Yes.
So it's like that's good.
I've got one owner who I'm like, I could see if I don't like it. It didn't go how we thought. So this was on me, and I've got a way to make up for it.
Unexpected.
Where they were they moved out of state. They had a house. They gave it to me. I got it rented to a couple who, like, on paper they looked awesome, no problems, that kind of thing. I will admit, I did the screening. This is 100% on me. And then it was after I had done it, or in the midst of all doing that, I had hired someone to be the tenant screening person. And so I had her give the keys because I was like, you're going to kind of manage this relationship going forward. And so I was like, here's a great time to do it. She got done and was like, so you rented to them, huh? I was like, yeah. She was like, did you meet them in person? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Oh, man, she was so right, which is why I hired her, because she's awesome. Oh, no. But they ended up,
that happens.
They just didn't pay their rent. I was like, what the heck? The husband ended up going to jail for some other, like, he was supposed to show up to some court thing, which didn't show up on the report, by the way. And it was like for a child support type of thing or whatever. So they incarcerated him, and so he wasn't working. She didn't have enough money, and she was like, I need the money to pay for other stuff. So they just didn't. And it was like, it was this whole mess. And it was this couple who had moved out, and now they had 2 mortgages, and we're getting 0 income. And I was just like, shoot. And they made promises. Oh yeah, we're gonna get it all figured out, whatever. I was like, great. And they're like, we're applying through CSE to get everything paid. And I was like, okay, well, we're doing it. And then their communication dropped off, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? Yeah. And the owner was like super frustrated. Yeah. And I'll admit, like, there were so many unknowns in the air that all my updates were like, I don't know. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I felt so bad. I was like, this is totally on me. I did not put good people in here. And so good news is they did get approved by CSE, but it was by the person I hired. She was calling on their behalf to help with the paperwork, make sure that things were settled, because I don't think they would have done it on their own, to be honest. Yeah. And they're going to pay 6 months. Yeah. So I'm like, cool. And in that time, he is back out of jail. He's back working. They had some other financial stuff that had to catch up on, which I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. And so I think and we kept going in, just checking on the unit, because we found meeting them in person worked really well. And we were willing to put in that time and effort. And honestly, they're taking care of the house. Like, so it was like, you had those 3 criteria of what's responsible. Sure. I was like, all right, they're doing the middle one really, really well. Obviously, that first one, pay rent, they're not. And I have concerns about that in the future. But, I mean, he has an awesome job. He's a roofer. He alone made plenty of money. And then she was working. I was like, man, together they're way over the 3X. Yeah. And so, anyways, the communication, at the beginning, they were great. I think when things got hard, they dropped off. But, when we were applying and everything, like, they were great on responding. It was funny. They were even like, and again, one could argue this should have been a red flag in retrospect, but when we set up a time to do the tour, they text me and say, hey, we're running 20 minutes late, just so you know. But I was like, okay, like,
yeah,
traffic happens. I get it. To me, I'm like, that's cool. That's all I want. And yeah, I don't know. It's been weird. That's one where I think if I don't pull it out, the owner's going to be upset and they'll move on to someone else. But I'm also like, they're going to get paid.
Yeah.
And it stinks. And I am already like, I'm not charging a management fee for all of that stuff. I'm just not. I'm going to take the loss on that. We eventually had to file for an eviction to really just get everything moving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to eat those fees. I'm not charging it. Normally that would be a fee that the owner would pay, but it's more like it's just a pass through expense. It's not a fee.
Right.
But I'm like, never mind. I'm going to eat it. Again, I'm not going to charge any management fees for all of this stuff. I will going forward, just like normal.
Yeah.
So there's things like that, and I'm going to let them know, hey, like, this is on me. I get it. And I'm not going to charge. If we had to release, I wouldn't charge a new lease up fee. I'm actually not even going to. I'm not going to charge one for them. So, anyways.
Yeah.
There's
you
things like that.
You really are trying to make it right.
Yeah, and I've been trying to over communicate more recently.
Yeah.
Anytime we have a development. And they're the kind of owners they're really like, well, what's going on? Like, it's the same. Like, there's no update. We're just waiting to hear back. So, I could see them leaving. And if they wanted to, like, dude, I get it. Like, this did not start the way that we wanted. And it's technically my fault because I didn't, they fell through my screening cracks.
Yeah.
It happens. It was a bummer. It wasn't my property.
Sure.
But, so that kind of stuff happens. And if they decide to leave, like, cool, like, here's everything that you need. Yeah. I will also say for this couple, if something else comes up, like, my patience for that's going to be super low. Yeah. They're like, no, we're not. Like, they'd be the kind of one where once their caught up payments happen, if they're not paying by the 5th, like, the 6th, here's the paperwork, we're moving on. Yeah. I don't even care if they're going to be like, oh, no, we're just running behind. I'm like, awesome. Here's the paperwork.
Start the paperwork and go through the process.
And so, so we had that happen. That was super lame.
Interesting.
And those kind of things happen.
Sure.
Which is a bummer. And again, I'll own it. That was my fault. I did not. I don't know, whatever. But I hired someone awesome who that was a situation where she had the spidey sense thing. And I think had she been doing it from the very beginning, she probably wouldn't have rented to him because she would have found. She would have dug
deeper.
I don't know what
or something.
I still don't know what I missed because on paper, like, he still has a good job. And anyways,
something.
That stuff happens.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that transition would be smooth and.
That's my goal. Yeah. Again, that's what I would want if I was moving on. I had that with the apartment manager that didn't work out well, where it was just, oh my gosh, it was like pulling teeth to get the information. I was like, this is super lame. Yeah. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
And I get, like, I technically have 30 days to do a final accounting and stuff like that. But again, all my stuff's on demand. So like, here it is.
Cool.
Just take it.
Well, those are all the 20 questions that I have.
So would you hire me?
Rapid fire. Yeah, I think so.
Why not? Sounds great.
I kind of already did.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing that. I appreciate it. I know this was a little bit longer, but I just wanted to go through and, like, those would be my answers. Yeah. And hopefully they give you clues if you decide not to go with me, which is fine, because maybe you live out of the area. Sure. That kind of gives you a sense for the types of answers that you can expect from a property manager. And I do think there's also an overlap with an operator or a sponsor who you're investing with as well, because they're going to talk about those kind of things. They may not be doing the day-to-day, but they're going to be looking for a property manager that kind of does those kind of things, and they're going to have a philosophy in the way that they want things done. Yeah. So I think that's valuable. So thanks for listening. With that, have a great day.